We're going to go ahead and start. We have about 500 people on. Yeah, Bryan.
Can we just one more housekeeping thing? So I see a lot of people subscribing to my Substack. I really appreciate that. But unlike Malcolm, I almost never use it. So if you want to get my free content, just at my X handle, which I put in the messaging, is just at Denver Cunning, at DenverCunning. Better place to see my stuff. But thanks.
Yeah,
Malcolm.
well,
I don't have the patience to write these long form articles.
you don't
anymore,
have to. You can do video shorts. You can do just lives, and you'll earn income. So
right.
you don't need it. You're one of them
do
rich
time.
lawyers. So that being said, we are passing the 500 mark, which is pretty good. And yeah, thanks, Jill. Tell them, smash those hearts. I am watching your commentary during this, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk first. And I think it is very important. And right now, or in the entirety of U.S. news media, there is, which is social media and news media, there are not two former intelligence professionals sitting down discussing what was going on with Tulsi Gabbard. I know on the news media, John Brennan has been out there. James Clapper has been making comments. But, two professionals like us who have been on both sides of this, and Bryan, who is a lawyer and a former federal prosecutor, is probably going to have some things to say about the legal aspects of what Tulsi Gabbard and the Attorney General essentially are doing.
Another thing, Malcolm, is not only is what you said true, that we're really the only two intelligence professionals talking about this, we also had absolutely nothing to do with any of the things we're talking about. Unlike, for better or worse, some of the people you named, neither one of us were in office and we had nothing to do with any of it. So we're more
right. Oh,
objective.
Yeah, that's important to tell people, because there are a lot of people out there who have this, Chuck Norris view of the world that once you're in forever, right? You never get out processed. You never get read out of programs. You're always in and always maintain your clearance. Have some news for you. That's not true. Well, the phrase former is good. As a matter of fact, John Liccioni is here, former NSA intel analyst and Korean linguist, a Korling. I know everything you've done. You're a rivet joint bastard. So, sorry. Shout out to my NSA brothers here.
If the Chuck Norris worldview were true, people owe us a lot of back pay.
Yeah. And they need to fly helicopters to our remote homes to pick us up and say, we need you. As we all know, there is no you. Okay. Once you're out the door, nobody really cares about you, unless, of course, something screwed up, somebody got arrested as a spy, and they want to interview you for that. So, for all that, we have we have a career of now being widely out of touch. But the difference between what Bryan and I do is that we have a basis of experience in which we worked in those rooms with cipher locked doors, and I constantly try to stress this to people who are, usually vet bros that are coming at us. I know everything you've done in your career. No, you don't. You don't know anything. Literally not one thing do you know, because if you were not in that cipher-locked room that I was in, you are literally kept unknowing of what's happening. You could even know what the room does and not know what the individuals within inside it are. So we have a depth of knowledge and experience in which we've seen activities, we've seen events, we see it in the geopolitical spectrum today. And, even though I've been out of the military for 20 years, I was an intelligence contractor for a good piece of my post-military days. So, I held a top secret SCI special access program clearance for almost over 3 decades. So that does inform your view, because we know how much of the information we see is gathered. We know how the intelligence process works from the first days, from Nathan Hale, technically screwing up his infiltration and trusting the wrong people and being the hero spy that America has always loved, right up to the greatest spies in American history like Tony Mendez and, some of the great intelligence collectors like Bryan Cunningham and myself, and understanding how it works. It is important for you to know how we see things in the political spectrum that impact you in your world. Because what's going on right now, and the reason we've got two former spooks here getting spooky, is because there is a person who is now technically leading U.S. intelligence, who by statute does not meet the qualifications to even be in the job. To be the director of national intelligence, that's the position we're talking about, by law required you to be a career intelligence professional. Tulsi Gabbard was a politician. She was a Democrat first, and then a Democrat that caucused with the Republicans, then went over to Fox News. But for 2 or 3 years, she was a reservist at Fort Bragg 1 weekend out of the month, where she was working with a psychological operations unit. That is not a career intelligence professional. That is a person who parachutes in on Saturday morning and parachutes out, checks out on Sunday, and was doing that to pump up her political career and then talked herself into this job. And how do we know that? Some of the things she was saying as a congresswoman was just plain nuts. Right? She saw Russia as almost an ally. She loved the warlord and dictator of Syria, Hafez al-Assad. That's how old I am, right? I actually did operations against Hafez al-Assad, Syria. Bashir al-Assad, his son, there was no dictator she did not want to cozy up to. And also she comes from a family that literally, a white group family that ran a cult in Hawaii, and it was a cult in which, if you read about Tulsi Gabbard's father, there are many great exposés done on it, was one of these, Hare Krishna style Hindu cults that, sex, in the Jeffrey Epstein way was a component of it. So for her to be in the Trump administration in charge of 17 U.S. intelligence agencies, arguably 19, is actually an anathema to anyone who is an intelligence professional, because she sees Moscow as an ally. She sees warlords as the kind of people she would like to get around. She had close personal ties with the government of India, which is now an authoritarian regime, with nearly 1 billion people. But what she did not seem to have any faith in at all was the U.S. government and U.S. intelligence. She trafficked in conspiracy theories, including QAnon, and believing that there were secret super spies planted throughout the deep state that were exposing liberals as being pedophiles. That's what the QAnon conspiracy is. And that Donald Trump was the hero. What was that?
And cannibals.
Well, I was getting to that part. And they believed that they were kidnapping 300,000 children a year. I just saw this in a Twitter feed, and that they had spent $21 trillion building a secret chain of magnetic levitation trains that go under every city in the United States, like 30 cities, and where they traffic, kidnap children, scare them, right? See if this sounds familiar. Scare them and terrorize them with torture so that they would excrete a chemical they call adrenochrome, and that this was a form of cannibalism, was being given to Hillary Clinton to keep her young. I shit you not, this is the QAnon conspiracy, and that Donald Trump is the hero of this story, who is elected to hunt down all the liberal Hollywood elite pedophiles. Tulsi Gabbard bought into that. And this statement that she made over the weekend, if you've read my profile, you see where they are deliberately calling attention to this, what the QAnon people call the storm, which is supposed to be a day in which they arrest all the liberal elites, starting with Barack Obama. Sound familiar? Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, everybody, and then take them to Guantanamo Bay for military tribunals and summary execution. That is QAnon in a nutshell. It's crazy. So
Yeah,
now,
I believe Mike Flynn just reposted it like yesterday.
oh Jesus, Mike Flynn, a guy who was crazy beforehand. We didn't really understand. There were a lot of problems with Mike Flynn when he was director of Defense Intelligence Agency. But when he went to Moscow and went to the headquarters of Russia's Defense Intelligence Agency, GRU, right? GRU, he came back gushing of them so much, half of the counterintelligence establishment of the United States thought he was flipped by the Russians. And as soon as he got out, he was fired by Barack Obama, who thought he was a counterintelligence threat, ran a toxic environment at DIA, surrounded himself with crazies. Soon as he got out, he immediately accepted $45,000 from Russia Today and was sat at a dinner at the right hand of Vladimir Putin.
And also, Malcolm, I think you forgot to mention that Tulsi Gabbard routinely, including since she's in her current job, reposts the talking points right from Russia TV and Russia Today.
Straight from Russia Today. But she also is a big fan of Tucker Carlson. Jackson Hinkle. Jackson Hinkle is literally an enemy asset. This guy sides with Moscow, went to the Ukrainian front as a journalist, rode on tanks with a weapon on, somewhere in Russia. Huge supporter of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and the Yemeni terrorist group Ansarullah, right? I shit you not. She retweets this guy. And had any of us done this at any point in our careers, we would have been in the office of the Special Security Office. They would have snatched our clearance in real time. They would have sent us to a full double lifestyle polygraph, then hit our ass with a third counterintelligence polygraph. They would have fully scrubbed our entire social media and our private communications because they likely would have gotten a FISA warrant.
So
but she gets to freaking sit in the office of the ODNI and say this shit out loud.
I don't want to get diverted on Hinkle, but I will just say it just occurred to me, Malcolm, I think he's unique. America's had lots of spies that have sided with individual enemies of the U.S. at any one time. He decided to spy for all of them at the same time. The criteria for him to criticize to side with someone is just that they're a U.S. enemy.
Jackson Hinkle is going to wake up in pieces someday. And the biggest mystery in the world is which number of intelligence organizations wanted him dead? Is it going to be, Ukrainian intelligence, GUR, SBU? Yeah, they've got it. Look, they've made it eminently clear they will kill anyone who is a representative of Russia who acts in that capacity. The Mossad, definitely the Mossad have a reason to want to do Jackson Hinkle, right? It could be freaking Malaysian intelligence. You don't know. The guy has pissed off so many people. The Iranians may want to false flag kill him and say that it was the Mossad. He's the kind of guy that will go to Syria and think that everybody's on his side and he'll end up in a beheading video. So that aside,
he's walking a tightrope.
He's walking a tightrope. Let's talk about the report, I put it in quotes, that Tulsi Gabbard has claimed is the smoking gun of Barack Obama being what she called involved in a treasonous conspiracy. Let's set aside for a moment that this stupid bitch doesn't understand, can't literally read because there is only one crime in the Constitution. And it's pretty clear. I've just read again, put it in the article, Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, which states that you must be levying war. As a matter of fact, let me read it to you right now. Treason against the United States shall consist only of levying war against them, which means you are fighting in a foreign force against the United States. This was, by the way, written specifically after Benedict Arnold joined British forces and fought in the Virginia Peninsula campaign, which, by the way, when George Washington was at West Point when Benedict Arnold went over to the HMS Eagle and they captured Major Andre, George Washington was literally at his fucking breakfast table with his wife, right? Part of the plan was to turn over West Point with Washington, his entire battle staff, and the French liaison officers who were there as well. And as soon as Washington saw that Arnold had these documents in his boot, which were the plans of West Point, that's when Alexander Hamilton and Major, what's his freaking name? I can't remember, Washington's chief of intelligence, suddenly realized West Point was undefended and that Arnold had taken down all of the defenses. Not only did he get $3 million in today's current currency, he disarmed the entire defense of West Point and was going to kidnap and capture George Washington. So the Constitution did two things. One, it specifically wrote in all the shit Arnold did. And then, as it says, or in adhering to their enemies and giving them aid and comfort, which means you sided with the enemy and assisted them. That clause wasn't just Benedict Arnold. It was also Major General Charles Lee, who, by the way, we found out in 1846 that Charles Lee, the commander who almost lost the Battle of Monmouth, was captured 1 year earlier in a British special operation, was held in New York and as a free man and then paroled back to Washington. Washington had to bring him on board because he was a Southerner. Why do I say Charles Lee? Because in 1846, they found the original letter Charles Lee wrote to General fucking Cornwallis with the entire plan to win the Revolutionary War. Great book. I have a first edition called The Treason of General Lee. That book is where he aided and comforted the enemy for over a year. So all of this being said, here's the last part of it. No person shall be convicted of treason unless the testimony of two witnesses over the same overt act or a confession in an open court. The final part, which I don't have written here, is it does not extend to your immediate family unless they were part of the treason. And that was George Washington's nod to Peggy Shippen Arnold, who swore that he betrayed her. And as we found out later in history, she was the conduit for Benedict Arnold to be recruited by Major Andre, because Major Andre lived in Shippen House in Philadelphia, and there's a lot of rumors that he was banging her. So all of this being said, we have now defined treason. Today, Donald Trump himself, not Tulsi Gabbard, not Pam Bondi, Donald Trump himself said, I believe Barack Obama should be tried for treason, and he's guilty. He's guilty. We see it's guilty. I shit you not, we live in an alternate universe. Bryan, I'm just reading the text. You're a lawyer. Let me give you an analytical query as we would if I were a national signals intelligence watch officer amongst the National Intelligence Watch Officers briefing. And I would start that query with, what the fuck?
So I just wanted just an admin thing. You are very delayed, and so am I on my screen. If no one else is having the problem, it's fine. I can deal with it. But are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I'll just deal with the jerking around. So I want to start with a couple of things. One is, here's the title, the actual title of the so-called smoking gun document that Tulsi Gabbard put out. By the way, violating not only her oath of the Constitution, but the National Security Act of 1947 and Executive Order 12333, which controls intelligence activities, which we can talk about. Here's the title, quote, "New evidence of Obama administration conspiracy to subvert President Trump's 2016 victory and presidency." Well, there's only a few things wrong with those words. One, it's not new. Two, none of it is evidence, at least of what she said. As three, they don't show any conspiracy. And fourth, there's no subversion. Other than that, it's completely accurate. So we'll circle back.
Yeah, you know what was accurate? Open paragraph U, close paragraph, right? The unclassified marker on that statement.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that was accurate.
That might not even be accurate because I bet they didn't go through a real declassification process. But so just you gave a great background summary, but I wanted to say two other things about treason being treated the way that it is in the U.S. Constitution. And I think you said this, but treason is the only crime in the entire battery of U.S. law that is actually defined in the Constitution.
Correct.
That's how seriously they took it. And there are two reasons why I believe they put it in addition to everything you said. One is the kings of England and the queens of England would basically use the word treason to mean anyone who disagrees with them. Mm-hmm. And so they would say treason, they would lock people up, they would execute them. So the exact type of situation that the treason provision was intended to prevent is being perpetrated right now by DNI Gabbard. Now, I'm not saying Gabbard is committing treason, so don't misunderstand me. But what she is doing is using a position of power and authority on behalf of her king/dictator/president to try to use treason to silence the opposition and to punish the opposition. So it's exactly this kind of situation that the framers wanted to avoid.
I have a question. Now, I know that I'm just a country voice intercept operator who's just spent decades blowing his ears out listening to our enemy's most sensitive and secretive information. But what do I know? Every once in a while, when I was stuck on a ship or a submarine, I'd read these things we now would refer to as non-binary information acquisition and dissemination devices on history, also known as a book. And I read that there was this document called the Magna fucking Carta, in which these accusations of treason were part of the deal that had to be brought into reform, and that these reforms led literally, right, to parts of the Constitution in like the Fourth Amendment, right? Unlawful searches and seizures. The Fifth Amendment, a right not to incriminate yourself. So this goes back a lot further than the Constitution, but somehow everyone has decided the Elizabethan definition of treason pre-Magna Carta is the way it should be for Donald Trump. Are they all illiterate or are they all sucking psychopaths?
That's a great question. I did want to say one more background thing before we get into the meat of it. The word Gestapo comes into play here.
Geheimstaatspolizei.
All of the secret police apparati of dictatorships. The reason the Gestapo is important is the law that created the CIA and the Defense Department and put all the limitations on them is the National Security Act of 1947. And this was specifically passed by the people who had fought and overseen the fighting in World War II against the Nazis, and they saw what the Soviets did, specifically passed to avoid, and the main thing it did is it separated foreign intelligence like the CIA from domestic law enforcement like the FBI. And the reason is that we saw the horrors of the same person or entity having both the sweeping collection powers of an intelligence service and also a badge and a gun and could take you away in the dark of night.
Right.
President Trump literally said, I mean, putting aside that the whole DNI thing is complete bullshit and mixed direction, which we can talk about in a minute, but the president literally said, these people should be locked up because Tulsi Gabbard says so. Tulsi Gabbard has absolutely no law enforcement power at all, and that's the way we wanted it to be because we didn't want to create our own Gestapo.
Interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard not only wrote this quote unquote report, which by the way had a subtitle on her evidence chart called Intelligence Community Suppression of Intelligence Showing Russian and Criminal Actors Did Not Impact the 2016 Presidential Election via Cyber Attacks on Infrastructure. Now, I define this as her staff, who are not political appointees, who are intelligence professionals, fucked her with that statement. They put up there a clear line that any idiot could read that the entirety of the Russia influence operation, which I outlined in my book, The Plot to Destroy Democracy, started in 2012 when Donald Trump was texting a guy by the name of Konstantin Rykov. And he told Konstantin Rykov after Mitt Romney lost, I could run for president and beat Barack Obama. And Rykov said, Moscow is with you. And Trump tweeted a photo of him giving the double thumbs up. 1 week later, Trump registered Make America Great Again PAC. At that point, an operation was started that's really kicked off 1 month before he goes to Moscow in 2013 for Miss Universe. And Prigozhin stands up the Internet Research Agency in September of 2013, hired 20 English-speaking supervisors, and put out feelers to hire 1,000 English-speaking cyber warfare people to pump Trump. Then a number of Russian spies started popping up around the Trump camp, including the famous Maria Butina, who was an SVR officer, Russian clandestine service. One day, she's a 20-year-old fucking used furniture salesperson in Siberia, and 2 years later, she's pops up, as we know, went to the Yuri Andropov School of Intelligence, and shows up in the United States as the right to bear arms girl, right? FBI eventually rolls her up, arrests her as an unregistered foreign agent, right? AKA a spy.
Yeah,
So,
let me just step in real quick as somebody that's prosecuted these kind of cases.
Yeah.
That is what the government charges someone with when they don't want to say a full-blown violation of the Espionage Act for some reason, like trading the person back and forth, or maybe there's
what
a
they
witness
did.
that can't testify. So that's a nice way of saying she's a spy against the United States of America.
And that's exactly what happened. They traded her for unnamed persons, which means real people we had who were assets that they rolled up, and we traded this fucking silly ass NRA girl who was sitting around. You know, we would say she was passably attractive or cleaned up good, right? Hallmark of a freaking honeypot, not super Svetlana hot, right? But she wasn't even a Natasha. She's more like a Nadia, right? Not book smart and good looking, but, half and half. Running around in a bikini holding AK-47s at the NRA convention. And she fucking drew in everybody, right? Everybody. So all of this being said, all of these assets that are running around U.S. intelligence during this period of time, Tulsi Gabbard has no interest in any of them. Her job was clear. She was going to KGB-ify U.S. intelligence. the office of the Director of National Intelligence right now is no different than the fucking NKVD, right, under Stalin, and no different under Khrushchev as the KGB, being a political body that uses intelligence for the protection of the regime leadership and Politburo. And so, which tells me this. The second thing that gave me a hint that we have gone completely into La La Land is that she fucking releases files on Martin Luther King. She has no authority as the director of foreign intelligence to even fucking have these files. She has what that's an FBI job. It's FBI files. Did the FBI intelligence division suddenly come under the Director of National Intelligence? No. It's part of the Department of Justice, right? And it's absolutely ludicrous. She releases that. So now the bottom line is very simple. She is nothing but a political shill who is now GOP, a guardian of pedophiles. And her job was to drop a bombshell for the QAnon people, because QAnon has been calling for liberal blood in the storm and the day of the rope hanging liberals from streetlights. And I suspect she has this in their head that they may, in fact, try to execute the plan of arresting people summarily and trying to arrest them and send them to Guantanamo Bay, because I can't see anything stopping them. She suddenly drops up because they needed to take the pressure off of Epstein. And the only thing QAnon wants more than to roll up liberal pedophiles is to roll up liberal leadership and claim that they are criminals and execute them. I can't believe the words are coming out of my fucking mouth. But that's where we are.
I mean, what you're stating is what QAnon believes and what they want. Whether they can pull it off, I don't know, but that is what they want. And also, this is one of 50 distractions of various kinds. We can list a bunch of them that the administration's engaged in since they refused to put out the Epstein files. And it's just transparent. I mean, I always used to tell juries as a prosecutor, here's all your jury instructions, but you don't need to leave your common sense at home. If you have someone who is recorded on Howard Stern, elsewhere, their interest in underage girls, who has had a civil rape determination made against them, who is doing everything they possibly can to distract the base from getting the administration to release the files, that is circumstantial evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but people should be taking all that into account. Every single time they do something to distract us makes me more certain they got real problems with those files.
Right. Well, apparently the Epstein train is not only a freight train, it is an express freight train that is being pulled by 10 different locomotives. The things that they are doing, I was on with Anthony Scaramucci yesterday on my Black Man Spy podcast. And he said literally everything they're doing is if they had wanted this thing to go out of control. And it's what you would be doing if you wanted to get rid of Donald Trump. So, I mean, I don't know who's advising them. I don't care. But Trump told Tulsi Gabbard to say what she said. The things she wrote in her report did not come from anyone in the intelligence community, except that title that I read to you, which is a clear example of intelligence professionals going, we're going to give you what you think you're getting, but what we're giving you is the truth. Russia did not hack the 2016 election. No one claimed Russia hacked the 2016 election. Russia I literally am the first person in U.S. news media to say it out loud, because as an intelligence professional, I saw the op. Deep far back as early as February 2016. I was asked about it by Chris Matthews in April 2016 when Judge Napolitano on Fox was going, do you believe that Moscow has 30,000 Hillary Clinton emails and they're debating whether to release them? And Chris Matthews asked me if that was true. I was like, are you shitting me? This would be crown jewels intelligence. That means one of the 5 people in the room is a U.S. spy. No one's ever going to say that out loud. No one. That statement came from Moscow. They released this statement to excite Judge Napolitano and Fox News. And that led me to my famous statement with Joy Reid, that the United States is under attack in an information warfare operation designed to elect Donald Trump as president. I said that on July 16, 2016, and on July 17, 2017, as they were pondering firing me, Donald Trump said, Russia, if you're listening, please release the 30,000 emails, because Malcolm Nance was right yesterday. He didn't say that last part, but that was pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah, and let's be clear. Let's be clear. If a U.S. citizen got on a private phone and communicated with Russian intelligence and participated in an agreement to steal and release private emails, classified or not, which they probably weren't, that person is probably guilty of a crime. And doing it on international television, in my opinion, doesn't change that level of guilt. So right there, you had a problem, a big problem. But maybe we should circle back to what Tulsi actually reported in the situation.
Sure.
As you know, I am trying these days to not be very political, but this is such a grave threat to our democracy, and it's so obvious that I feel like I can talk about it. I need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So a couple things. We already talked about the general principles in the Constitution and how that affects domestic versus foreign intelligence. Let me read to our viewers a section from the National Security Act of 1947, which, again, as I said, is the law that governs the Director of National Intelligence. Now, some people may say, well, how could that happen? That was in 1947, and now we're in the DNI wasn't created until 2002. Well, that's because that law has been amended many times by Congresses, signed into law by President. And fun fact, I was actually one of the people who wrote the statute that amended the National Security Act that created the DNI. So I know whereof I speak. Here is Section 102A of the National Security Act of 1947. Quote, responsibilities and authorities of the Director of National Intelligence. And I'll skip the non-pertinent stuff. You get to Section 2. National intelligence should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. That is in the statute stating her responsibilities. There's a whole lot of other provisions to the same effect, but the only other one I'll read is in Section F, which is, quote, no covert action may be conducted which is intended to influence United States political processes, public opinion, policies, or media. And we can talk about what the definition of covert action is, but that means don't use your fucking powers to lie to the American people, especially for political purposes.
Right. Well, again, you're right. She's in violation of that. And, I've been asked by groups what we should do to counteract some of this stuff. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I think that we should have what I call not a Project 2026, but a Restoration 2026, Restoration 2027, where we put it on the table that the ODNI their head is on the chopping block. And that, it should a new House and Senate come into play that is in the hands of the Democrats, that ODNI is going to be charged, investigated to the nth degree, and forced out of power. I mean, look, it was bad enough when Richard Grenell had this job in the first administration. He was a hack. I mean, he was a ambassador to Germany who had his credentials stripped by the Germans. He literally interfered with German politics, and he was such a rabid Trump acolyte because he was like Peter Thiel. He was a gay Trump supporter. That they brought him back and made him ODNI, Director of National Intelligence. And however, he was afraid of doing political operations like Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, was brought in because, one, she is crazy. I believe she is mentally ill. I believe that she delves and lives in a world of conspiracy theories. I also believe this for a fact, that every fucking cipher lock door in her building and all other buildings in the community are shut for her, because she will compromise something that she doesn't understand or see, right? And finally, I believe that because she has come off as a QAnon crazy, it is actually in our interest to let her fucking spout off about these crazy conspiracy theories so that she's not selling the entire human control system to Moscow as a favor.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment, Malcolm. I also, though, agree that, or believe that, any information that she touches, no matter the level of classification that she think Putin wants, is going to Moscow. And I agree the professionals are probably not sharing as much as they would with someone like, by the way, Dan Coates, who was President Trump's first director of national intelligence, who's an actual conservative Republican. He got booted basically for telling the truth, but that's a sideshow. And I also believe that all of our allies believe that our intelligence can't be trusted now because of Tulsi and because of the risk that she'll compromise their secrets, just like Trump did in the Oval Office when he gave away Israeli national top secret information to the Russians. Let me also say, what she is doing with this report also violates Executive Order 12333, which has been in place ever since Reagan. All presidents, including Trump, have a version of it, and it too prohibits the kind of stuff that she's doing. So let's talk about the supposed authors of this piece of disinformation. She created a new so-called, quote, Directors Initiatives Group, close quote. And as far as I can tell, it was set up exclusively to weaponize U.S. intelligence in support of a purely political purpose, that is, protecting the king. Now, here's the big irony that I think you and I aren't missing, but a lot of people are missing. Up until 2025, the deep state did not exist, right? This idea that there's a cabal of organized enemies of a president who are constantly and secretly working against their purposes really did not exist. They're creating it right now. This operation is what you would call the deep state, because it's misusing resources, it's violating the law for purely political purposes. Or I guess you might say it's the anti-deep state, deep state. But this group, if you look at its charter, it claims that all it does is try to restore confidence in the intelligence community. But she created this group, I think, or she hijacked another group that already existed. And I don't see any other purpose besides political intelligence warfare, which is illegal.
It's literally the Stasi, right? East German intelligence. She doesn't have law enforcement powers, but the FBI, Justice Department, her statement of where she said she was going to send James Clapper, John Brennan, and Barack Obama, that she was going to have them charged with treason. These words were for two entirely separate groups. They were for QAnon, because they've been promising this to QAnon forever. And it allows them to now overlook the pedophile rings. And the other one was because Donald Trump put these fucking words right into her mouth. How many times has he said, I want these people prosecuted? Now he's coming out saying he's going to charge him with treason. He believes that he's guilty, right? We're moving to, here's where I'm afraid. I'm afraid that we are moving to a position where now, granted, all the doors are closed. Basic military intelligence is going to happen without pause or delay. It's just, as you said, no intelligence agency in the world is going to want to deal with us unless they are currying favor with Trump. and no one's going to believe a fucking thing that they say, right?
Yeah.
All of the doors are going to slam shut. GCHQ, MI6, they'll, no joint intelligence operation will be carried out, except that they will be essentially what we call, well, I don't know, in your side, because I worked with your side at one point, saran wrap, right? We got you, your cover is saran wrap. Um, your protected status, we don't really give a fuck about, because we will create a false liaison for you while we carry out real operations.
Yeah.
And
So
it will appear your operations are continuing. And what they'll be doing is that they will be taking an X-Acto knife and cutting away what's real and leaving you with the saran wrap and believing that you still have this special relationship that you have.
Yeah, and the combination of the Secretary of Defense, I hate to even say that, Hegseth, announcing to the world on like day 5 that the United States government, defense and otherwise, was shutting down our offensive cyber operations against Russia. And then Tulsi, I hope to God I'm wrong about this. I would be surprised if there are any living American intelligence assets in Russia now. Period. Full stop.
I have said that.
And
I have said that on air. And you know what's going to happen is that the people who are actually doing this, right, who are going to be losing these assets, somebody's going to have to come out and drop the dime, right? And it's going to be inflammatory. It's going to be, and it will start the Stasi/Gestapo witch hunt, which is the FBI, DHS, fucking Pete Hegseth at defense. Remember, he's been carrying out personally, having polygraphs going out about the 6 staff members that he fired for not being loyal, but being loyal to the Constitution and not him, and being leakers to the press. I think someone's going to come out, ain't going to even be whistleblowing. And the people that it's going to be, it will be somebody that will go over to GCHQ. No, not GCHQ. The Q is my side. It'll be somebody who will go over to the 6, right? Or MI5, and they will announce every American intelligence asset has been compromised and has been killed. And then at that point, they'll go, Obama and Biden. Well, he's got a funny internet connection. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
yeah, we hear you. Your camera's off.
Okay, maybe I'll leave it off. Maybe that'll make the bandwidth
Leave
a
it
little
off.
bit better.
Well, what I want to do is we've got 1,200 people here, which is pretty good. And what I'd like to do is take a couple of the questions off the list. John Lincione, our NSA guy, says, I agree with you. This could result in Trump out and Vance in, like the Project 2025 folks wanted. I don't know. Only if Vance and Peter Thiel are intent on getting Trump out, then they'd let the Epstein thing go like a freight train, don't you think?
Yeah, I don't look. I have no love whatsoever for JD Vance, although his cousin's a good dude. But I don't think that's what's going on. I really don't. I think if Vance and anyone who is his allies really wanted to make that happen, the much more direct way is to convince enough of the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment. I don't think there's a way to force the president out based on Epstein. No matter what he did.
Yeah,
Now,
you can't impeach him. You can't
yeah,
25th him, and I don't even think it's embarrassing enough for him to resign. I think he'll pull the full fucking Henry VIII and start
he'll
lopping
never.
off heads. Literally.
There is zero chance Trump ever resigns. The only thing that's equally unlikely is that an indictment will ever be handed down about Barack Obama. Can I just say
What?
one more
Wait,
thing
what?
about the get? There
Say
will
that
never.
again?
The only thing as unlikely as Trump resigning is an indictment coming for Barack Obama. There's a 0% chance of that. In
Bullshit.
my
I'm
opinion.
sorry. Look, sorry. I'm throwing, you can't see it. I don't know if you can see it. I'm throwing the black man card here. Okay.
I'm not saying they won't try. I'm not saying they won't try. I'm saying they won't succeed.
I think they will. I think they will get an indictment. They will make up an indictment, and that they will, at a minimum, indict him with the intent of marking him for history as the second indicted president in American history. I don't answer this question, Brian. Somebody has asked this question. How would all of this work since Barack Obama has immunity for all acts that are official acts of the presidency?
So there's about 100 reasons why Barack Obama did not commit a crime and couldn't be convicted in a fair proceeding, and that's one of them. And there's all kinds of mega people that are arguing two things. Either one, he didn't have immunity because he wasn't president when the Supreme Court made that decision, which is completely wrong because they're interpreting the Constitution and a statute, a law from 1789. So that means the Supreme Court, by 7-2, I think it was, or 6-3, said that every president has always had this. They didn't say it's a new thing because they're interpreting a law from 1789. So not only does the court say that he has immunity from anything that involves his duties as president, which taking care to faithfully enforce the laws, including around free and fair elections, does fall under the president's duties, but also they made it, and this is where I think they really screwed up the decision. This is where Coney Barrett dissented, but it's still the law. You can't even investigate that. You can't even go out and investigate a claim that a president, in acting under his official duties, did something illegal. You can't. Now, these guys may just defy the Supreme Court and the Constitution and try it, but that's not the law. So that's number one. Number two, I mean, there's 100 reasons, but another reason is, and this is the main thing I wanted to make sure our listeners take away, because we can save you reading 100+ pages of Tulsi Gabbard's quote unquote report, because the entire thing rests on a magic trick that they think you're dumb enough to fall for. And Malcolm alluded to it a few minutes ago. Those two so-called leaks that are the basis of the entire bullshit charge by Gabbard. First of all, she says they came from the CIA. She doesn't put out any evidence that they did. Second of all, every administration leaks, including every CIA. But the most important thing is those leaks, according to her document, said that the intelligence community, I'm not reading it verbatim, but basically the intelligence community has preliminarily concluded that Russia attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. elections in 2016, but not by hacking. And that's the part they leave out, not by hacking.
Right.
Everyone, Malcolm,
Right.
You, me, President Obama, and the Senate Select Intelligence Committee unanimously, after 1,000 pages, chaired by Marco Rubio, said the exact same thing. No one in 2017, 2016 said anything different. Not the president, not the intelligence community, no one. So what they want to do is trick you into thinking that the intelligence community falsely told the public that they hacked the elections and changed the votes. And no one said that ever.
Right. Well, I've just by complete shock and surprise, Lev Parnas has video bombed us here. So now we are having the opposite of the Unleashed podcast. We are having two spies and a felon. And who would know better about the bullshit that's going on? Lev, I haven't heard your podcast today. What do you know about what's going on with these accusations against Obama? Is this window dressing for Epstein to take the heat off, or is Trump intending to go all the way?
First of all, welcome. I love you, brother. I missed you. It's so funny. Hey, Bryan, what's up? I was just actually going live, giving an update on this, and everybody's like, wait a second. They're like, Malcolm's going live. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I didn't know Malcolm's going live now. You know what? So I said, I gave our crew a quick one, and then I wanted to jump on here and give you a couple of minutes before I go grab dinner. But what
right.
I'm hearing is, first
Yeah,
of all, he's definitely serious about it, but not that
Oh,
he's going to
shit.
be, not that he's gonna. I don't think how far he's going to be able to put, but he's definitely serious, very serious. Not only with the Obama stuff, but what he's today. I spoke about what's important is what he's doing with Todd Blanche. Though some of you guys might not
Oh,
know,
yeah.
but Todd Blanche was part of my legal team. He was originally was supposed to. He represented Manafort. Then he was supposed to represent me, but when I flipped sides, he continued representing my co-defendant,
Right.
Igor Fruman, and
Fulman,
he
yeah.
was trying to shut me up the whole time. He went to try to suppress the evidence that I gave in the first impeachment, and Todd Blanche is basically the guy that does the dirty work and shuts people up. And
So
now
he's talking to Ghislaine Maxwell? Ghislaine.
he's going to, yeah. And just think about it. And Brian, you might even tell. I mean, when was the last time you
Yeah,
saw
let me.
the attorney general or the assistant attorney general going directly by themselves to
Yes.
speak to a
Let, let,
person?
let, I mean, you know the horse's mouth to let, but let me just explain, having served in the Justice Department under Republican and Democratic presidents, how completely fucked up this is, okay?
Whoa,
First of all, Todd Blanche is the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. He is, in effect, the Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Justice, in which he supervises 115,000 attorneys, okay? Normally, if you were going to go interview, I mean, first of all, we all know this is not an interview, it's a shakedown, so they can offer a pardon in return for false testimony. But let's say you were actually going to go to try to interview an incarcerated defendant to get new information. You would send an assistant United States attorney from the district in which the person you want to talk to is incarcerated. Or maybe you would send someone from the Justice Department if it required a lot of technical specialty or whatever. Never. In fact, I bet there's never been a case.
It would be. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but wouldn't it be Marie Comey, the one they fired literally a day ago? She would.
Yeah,
be the
sure.
one that-
Yeah. So this, this is not exactly right, but it's order of magnitude right. Todd Blanche, as the Deputy Attorney General, is like 15 levels above an Assistant United States Attorney. Knows nothing about the case, probably knows nothing about this area of law, and to Lev's point, he's so compromised that he accidentally signed a Justice Department pleading in his capacity as Trump's personal lawyer.
Did you see that
So,
one?
yeah, this is how much disrespect Donald Trump has for his remaining believers, that he really expects them to swallow that this is anything like a uncompromised process.
Okay, he's going to her to do what? To shut her up and get her a pardon?
Two things.
Yep.
Let me give you guys some inside info to what's happening and the chain of events that unfolded, and then I gotta run my wife screaming for dinner, and I'll let you guys continue. And what's it called? So first of all, he's going there to do two things: A, to find out what she has, because what led to Todd Blanche coming there today is a chain of events that happened that I need very important for you guys to keep your eye on the ball.
Mhm.
So what transpired, what a lot of people don't realize, there were some things that happened in coincidence that have to do with each other that were not separate. When Maxwell was trying to send messages out that she wanted a new trial. She wanted to speak to Congress. This was right after the July 4th, the July 6th memo that they put out.
Right.
What happened was the DOJ and the Republicans shut her down. They didn't want to give her a new trial. They didn't want to support her appeal, and they didn't want to bring her up for Congress. What happens next is all of a sudden the Wall Street Journal publishes a letter. A letter. Where do you think that letter came from? Well, my sources tell me that letter came from Maxwell's team. And now it was not only the letter, but it was a joint partnership with Murdoch, where the lawyer showed them enough information that if Trump, this was a message to Trump to give it back to Maxwell. So when Trump went to Murdoch and told him, you better not publish this, Murdoch told him, I got more because this is who my source is. Or I don't know directly how he told him I wasn't there, but I'm giving you a little bit, what's it called? So what happens next? Next, all of a sudden, who meets with Murdoch? J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance gets sent in to meet with Murdoch.
This is
After the
dirty as
a-
fuck.
dirty. Oh, you
Yep.
can't even make this shit up. After JD Vance meets with Murdoch, what happens then? Today, Todd Blanche writes a letter saying, I mean, a Truth Social, I mean, X post, whatever you want to call it, basically saying that even though that their July 6th memo is still intact, that they have no evidence of third party probe, that there's nothing wrong, that there's no list, everything like that. But because President Trump wants everything revealed, and because now Maxwell might have something she wants to talk about, the DOJ is willing to listen. So basically, to translate it to you guys, is he's going to go in there to find out what else she knows and how damaging it could be to Trump. So that's damage control. Number two is he needs to give his base, extremely very important, some red meat because they're going crazy. And I even know, Bryan, I heard a little bit about you getting caught up with this
Yeah.
Jim and all these guys, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about in a second. But they're going crazy. He needs to give them some red meat because they're turning. So remember, the Epstein stuff is not red or blue. I mean, it doesn't, there's also bad Democrats, Republicans, independents, foreign aid. There's a lot of dirty people on that list. So what they're going to try to also find is somebody big enough that Maxwell's willing to go and give that red meat to flip the script and say, you see, it was the deep state, it was these. And here is the proof that this is about to go down. That happened simultaneously, which people think is good news, but this is very bad news. Is all of a sudden the oversight committee today that Burchett put in, led by James Comer, decide that they're going to subpoena Maxwell to come testify in front of Congress, in front of the oversight committee. I want to tell everybody very clearly, I know James Comer very well, and he will never put any information or give anybody a chance to talk anything bad about Donald Trump or anything that could mess him up.
Okay,
So
question.
yeah.
Serious question for both of you. And this is what's going through my mind. If this happens, right? They cut a sweetheart Acosta style deal for Maxwell. She fucking gets a pardon and walks. Comes in and says, Trump never met him before, was a guy who just dropped in. Seriously, Bryan, is this the end of the Department of Justice? Are 1,100 lawyers going to fucking walk?
Well, two things about that scenario. One is, yes, you will see mass resignations from the DOJ and the U.S. Attorney's offices, like what's already been happening in the intelligence community. But the other thing I think what people should think about, and maybe Lev has a counter argument to this, as far as I know, there is no such thing as an NDA tied to a pardon. So if he pardons her or commutes her sentence, I believe she could go out and say whatever she wants. But if, on the other hand, the DOJ reaches an agreement with her, then they can keep her shut up. So I actually think DOJ is going to do the dirty work, even though what her lawyer wants her to have is a pardon.
He won't pardon her. He's never going to pardon her because his base will eat him up alive. Because remember, the child said, but he will, if she gives him big enough meat, he will turn her into a martyr and saying, listen, but he won't pardon her. He won't pardon her.
She's been in jail 4 years, right?
I agree with Bryan. The DOJ is going to cut some sort of deal, and quietly, maybe she'll do another few years, and then they'll get her out quietly.
Bullshit. Because let's be honest about this, right? Every minute that she's in there, she can be fucking shanked.
No, you know what happens? I'll tell you. So
why am I saying this? You should tell me. You've been in.
So they have special units in these prisons for people like this that they're in there that they don't even have names. They're only numbered. Nobody knows who they are. They're either very high level informants, high individuals, and Bryan might even talk to, because in Otisville, where I did prison time, the adjacent medium security had a division prison there where nobody even knew who was in there and was certain prisoners. They keep like that, and then they all of a sudden come out, new identities, new people. You never even know if they're still in prison, where they happen. They just like they go through the cracks in the system. So there's a lot of things that could transpire.
Yeah, but is she ever going to walk the fuck out? Because I'm telling you, she may as well be a Russian oligarch, literally dead person walking, if she steps outside of a U.S. prison. If this thing is as big as everybody says it is, all right, and I've been around the global oligarchy, so have you. These people, you guys been around the Russian mafia in Brighton Beach. Killing her would be a dawdle. Right?
Well,
She's
again,
going to go to fucking Monte Carlo.
But depends who she talks on. This is the whole key. Depends. This is how the narrative.
Yeah.
She right now is holding the cards, which a lot of people don't understand, because what she has a corrupt guy like Donald Trump that needs her to. See, the problem is nobody's trying to get to the bottom, to the truth, and these people that we're talking about, they're trying to paint the narrative. They're trying to paint the situation. They're trying to put in the court. So that's why it's very dangerous to see how she comes and who she implicates, because obviously she's looking to implicate somebody. She wouldn't be coming. I mean, her lawyers wouldn't be coming. I mean, just think about what her lawyers said. We're in talks with DOJ, and thank you. Just think about this, guys. Brian, think about what her lawyer said. This is another tell. He said, thank you to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, go ahead.
He thanked Donald Trump already for looking into the truth, to get to the bottom of the truth.
We all know what's getting set up here is that she's setting up Bill Clinton.
I think so also.
Without evidence, there won't be any evidence. There might be a flight log. Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, but the what's his name, the Alan Dershowitz and others who have been there multiple times, Prince Andrew. I'm sorry, there's no way she can live on this planet with what she's got. Over 1,000 trafficked children? Parents will fucking pay her to shank that bitch.
I agree.
Let me say two things about that. So Lev is right. They do have essentially WITSEC units in prisons. But if she were ever going to walk free, and if there's any connection to that she would know about to any kind of organized crime, to the Russian oligarchs, to anyone like that, they would have to put her in the most secure WITSEC that exists, including a change of appearance, because no one will believe that she's not going to tell their names. So if she has really bad guys in her head, they will try to kill her.
Brian's 100% right.
I got to tell you something. I've seen organized crime used as terrorist assets, right? As done by governments, whether, the Iranians, the Libyans, and others like that, the Colombians, cartels. They may do it just for fucking GP, right? For general purpose, for the notoriety of having put her down. This person, not just dangerous to Trump, because unlike Hollywood movies, which has the man arranging murders left and right, this one could have real basis in fact.
100%. I love you guys.
Shit, this is amazing. I can't even believe these words are coming out of our mouths.
It's crazy, dude. And we got so much more to uncover.
All
I love everybody out there.
You go eat.
I got to go with the family. If you're still alive when I finish, I'll jump on. Otherwise, Brian and Malcolm, I love you guys. Keep kicking ass. Keep bringing truth. And there's a lot more coming. So, guys, turn your notifications on. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you help whatever you can. Pay subscriber, whatever you guys can do, because we're out here bringing you shit that nobody else will talk about. Nobody else even they're scared to talk about, because trust me, I tell you, Trump and his goonies are watching all of this, and they know who's talking. And the number one thing they're trying to do is shut up the leakers, shut up people that are truth tellers. And right here, you have 3 of them. So do your guys' support. Make sure you do what you got. Love you guys. Talk to you later, man.
Thanks, Lev. Take care.
Have a good dinner.
All right.
I don't, we're getting a little bit off into
La La Land
movie style stuff, even though I agree with everything you said, but I just want to reiterate one thing.
Shit. All right.
Yeah.
And the problem with the world we're in right now is that crazy shit is now manifesting itself within our world.
Right. But I just don't want people to lose what I think is the central part of the plot, which is
Okay.
that there is no other explanation for the ginned up leaking. And by the way, this is the second presidential finding in the history of the United States to be declassified and partially released. And the reason I know that is I negotiated the release of the first one. It was the August 6, 2001 PDB with the 9/11 Commission. But the plot I don't want people to lose is that all of this, the D&I bullshit, which we can talk more about, but I think we pretty well dispatched with, the pardon communications, the presidential announcements, the release of the MLK files, there is no other reasonable explanation for all of that, including Trump's willingness to lose a big chunk of his base over this, unless Trump or someone close to Trump is in those files.
You're absolutely right. Well, we've gone over our allotted time. It was great having Lev Parnas here. I think that this is a shorter version of that show we were supposed to do, Circle of Spies. And to tell you the truth, I think it works because we have now jumped from politics to U.S. intelligence is now a central asset in the corruption of the American way of life. And now it's going to go over to Justice Department. So you're uniquely qualified to speak to both of those things. And I'm just frustrated. I do not traffic in conspiracy theory or bullshit. I don't. The problem is conspiracy theory is now trafficking within the intelligence community and is now being crafted as a pillar of their lies. And that's where I get most frustrated.
Yeah, it's what I said earlier about Malcolm. The phony narrative that MAGA tried to create about Clinton, Obama, and Biden presidencies is what they're building. Every accusation is a confession. The reason they accused the Democrats of doing all this shit is because that's what they would do. And now with presidential immunity and with his willingness to pardon anybody that helps him, they're doing it.
Absolutely madness. Absolute madness.
Can I just ask everyone? Can I just real quick ask everyone a favor? I love everybody for subscribing to me. I'll try to do more on Substack, but please go link with me on Twitter at Denver Cunning, DenverCunning, because that's where I put out most content.
Yeah, go see him on there and harass him. Follow him on Substack so we can get him on here full time.
There you go.
And we'll try to do this again. I'm certain within the next 48 hours, something crazy is going to happen. If Obama gets indicted or Brennan gets indicted, or some other intelligence professional, this is going to spiral out of control. And we will be in police state world. And voices like yours and mine, I really look forward to hearing your legal analysis as not tainted, but certainly steeped in your intelligence experience. But it has now come full circle. Everything, a bit of your experience is now happening in the negative way that Hollywood always portrayed it, as the man abusing things. And now I'm afraid to say, I think we're there.
And it's absolutely heartbreaking, to think that we spent our careers literally, in your case, putting your body out there to fight tyranny. And now we can't seem to have stopping it. We can't seem to stop it here, but we'll keep trying.
Well, with that being said, thanks for all of you for coming to this special version of Special Intelligence. We will do this again. I'm going to be doing a lot more Substack lives. I'm going to be doing one probably tomorrow for my paid subscribers only, where you will be able to come up and ask questions of me, and we can talk further about this. But thanks for Bryan Cunningham for coming up here. I appreciate it. I've learned so much. I mean, you saw me. I have my notebook. I have a full page of notes of things that you said tonight that have made me smarter and now made all 1,700 of us smarter, which, by the way, that is a big Substack live. So
awesome. Well, next time we'll talk about seditious conspiracy, which isn't happening with the Gabbard leaks, but was happening on January 6th, 2025, 2021.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Subscribe to Special Intelligence and go on X and subscribe to @DenverCunning. And we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.